play fantasy football with them, but how well do you really know your fellow owners? Well, take a seat, because it's time for owner orientation.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that random guy who wrote in our comment section in Arabic, welcome back to owner orientation. This week, Todd and I are joined by a longtime league member of the West Park Fantasy League, a man who none of us has seen since the summit in 2019. Todd, that was the year, right? 2019?
Yep.
It seems like several years ago. Of course, this is a man that we would all like to see more often. We miss him dearly. He has graced us with his presence on owner orientation, and we're very excited to have Mr. Forrest Britton in the house.
Hey, I'm not going to listen to the podcast. At least I can go on it.
Listen, I think since you've become a guest on the pod, I think now like you actually have an excuse to never listen ever again. I mean,
I think hopefully now I'm invested in it. I'm pretty self-obsessed, so I'm definitely going to listen to at least my portion.
Good.
And at that point, I'll have broken the seal. And you know, what's the point in keeping up the chaste relationship with Buffalo Bros after that?
That's what we like to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the program. I guess I'll just jump right into it. All right, Forrest, this is a question that we ask all of our guests at the beginning of owner orientation. How did you get into football? And specifically, you're a big Dallas Cowboys fan. How did you get into the Cowboys?
So I'm into the Cowboys because my dad's into the Cowboys. He grew up in Oklahoma. I think he was a Cowboys fan during that time, but I know he and my mom moved to Dallas, I think when I was born, like a year before I was born. The timeline's a little fuzzy. I wasn't taking detailed notes back then. So I think they moved there in like 1990. So I was born, and then the Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. They tell me stories about, school being canceled. My mom's a teacher. And apparently it was just, one of those great times and places to be alive, like California in the 70s, or I don't know, like France during the Revolution. Dallas in the 90s as a Cowboys fan.
Are you saying there were poets drinking coffee in outdoor cafes in Irving after the Cowboys won the Super Bowl?
Exactly. That's the sense I get. Again, I wasn't really functioning at the same level I am today. But yeah, it was a great time and place. So I think that really cemented it for them. I don't think I started watching football until the mid 2000s. I remember the pre-Tony Romo years vaguely. I remember, I think Quincy Carter was a guy who played quarterback for us the very first year I watched football. But then, what's his name? Bill Parcells became the coach. Drew Bledsoe came over at the very tail end of his career. That's when I started watching more intently. And then by the time Romo took over, it was like a diehard thing. And I was super into football. And I think I've watched every game since then, except well, actually, that's a total lie. I've definitely missed games. I've missed games this season. I don't think I watched 2 weeks ago. Sorry, guys. I got a little carried away with that answer.
Todd, already our guest is lying to us. Off to a great start.
I lie to myself first, then I lie to you.
Okay. So have you ever actually been to a Cowboys game in person?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to. I really, you should probably cut this out, but I'm almost more of a Tottenham Hotspur fan these days than I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. It feels like my soccer fandom is year round and my football fandom is, I don't know, from August to February, and then I forget about it. But soccer's on all the time. So right. It's like, it's just this fix that I keep getting every day.
So is that hard for you to watch soccer in mountain time? I mean, those games have to be on super early. I mean, they're early
Yeah.
for me and Todd, but I can't imagine for you.
I on game days where they've got the early slot, I set my alarm for 5:20 and I pull the big fuzzy blanket out to the couch and I turn the TV on. And even if I fall asleep, at least I'm like there watching it. If it's a good game, it'll wake me up. You know, the energy from the crowd will wake me up and I'll be able to not miss important stuff that happens. When I studied abroad in Prague during my, I don't know, 700th year of college, and I did watch Cowboys games at 3 a.m.
Wow.
So it's something I've done before, and I would do for the Cowboys too if I needed to, but luckily I don't have to. Mountain Time's the best time for football watching. I think that's my contribution to that argument.
I'm sure there will be a discussion about that in the group me after this episode comes out. But I digress.
So, Forrest, a bit of Cowboys trivia for you. This Dallas head coach called the largest trade in NFL history the Great Train Robbery. Do you know who was involved and what was traded in this infamous trade?
I want to say it's Jimmy Johnson and it's the Herschel Walker trade because it's a Cowboys themed thing. But that I actually explained that trade to my girlfriend a couple weeks ago. I said, Dallas traded the best running back in the league for a bunch of draft picks that turned into the core foundation of their multi-Super Bowl winning team. And by the way, the running back that they traded is now a crazy right-wing candidate in Georgia.
Yeah, about to take over my state. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Forrest, can you name any of the players that the Cowboys got with those draft picks?
I'm pretty sure Troy Aikman was one. I don't know if any of the other triplets were. No?
Nope.
Which of the triplets were drafted in that trade?
Emmitt Smith.
Okay. I knew they were each like a year apart.
Yeah.
I didn't know which one was that year.
A couple of the other famous ones are Darren Woodson and Kevin Smith.
Okay.
This trade basically precipitated the free agency period, and some coaches said that there would never be a trade like that again.
How many draft picks were involved?
It's a great question because a couple of the draft picks were conditional draft picks. So they traded 4 players. The Vikings traded 4 players, 2 linebackers, a cornerback, and a DN, plus 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, a 6th-round pick, and a 3rd-round pick. And then all the players, Jimmy Johnson would not start because they would turn into conditional picks. So he basically got even more picks afterwards. There was 18 picks involved in this trade when all was said and done.
That shrewd man.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Is this podcast not safe for work? Is there swearing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Go off. Absolutely. All of our fans in Saudi Arabia love when we cuss. It's a huge deal.
Little jolt of rebelliousness.
Exactly. Turning back to football for a second, Forrest, when did you start playing fantasy football and when did you join the WPFL?
That's a good question. I don't think I know the answer. I think it was in high school. I remember The Simpsons' dad being involved a couple of years after I think we started. So I want to say like 07 or 08, but who knows? I could be 2 or 3 years off. The only thing that I care about is that my quote championship was the year before we started keeping records. And so it's not provable. It's before the, God, what do they call it in the NFL? the merger, before the merger. But I got a real chip on my shoulder. I think I told you in the group me when we were talking about this podcast. I feel like it doesn't count. I'll say it on the record. It feels weak. I had my fun at the summit. I danced around in a tiara, but honestly, like if you held me to it, I wouldn't defend it. So
listen, I've
fire under me.
I've got the championship trophy sitting about 10 feet away from me. If you want me to mark your name in Sharpie, I'll do that. I mean, that's something that just you and I can figure. Well, everyone would know it was me, so never mind, but I can do that for you.
Cut it out in post.
Exactly.
It's the answer to everything.
So, Forrest, you live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I would love to know, what are the local NFL games that you get on TV? Who is like considered the local team that, you know, your Fox or CBS affiliate is always going to have on TV?
Well, first of all, no one has TV anymore. Everyone streams. So I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I think if you were to look at one of those maps that has, you know, the game of the week that's being shown on every network, I think it would probably be the Broncos. We're only 8 hours away from Denver. And last I checked, there's no teams in Utah or Idaho or Montana, which are our other closest neighbors. So I think the Broncos is the answer.
Yeah, I was thinking Seattle for some reason, but I totally forgot about Denver, and that definitely makes sense.
Our mountain bros.
Yeah.
Stick together.
Along with being part of the WPFL, a longtime member, you are also a world famous architect. And I was wondering if you've ever designed any houses for anyone famous, or if you've had to sign many NDAs that prevent you from talking about that.
I haven't had to sign any NDAs, no. But our firm has worked for famous people in the past. I really shouldn't even say it, but they're actually in the works to design a house. I'm not going to drop a name, but we are working on snagging a client who was a major quarterback in the NFL. And that's literally all I can say. I can maybe whisper it to somebody someday, but for now, that's it.
Can you give us the division that they played in? NFC, AFC, a time zone where their team played in?
I'll say NFC, and that's it. That's it.
Todd, I think I know who it is.
Yeah? Does that narrow it down for you?
Well, no, but I was gonna say Tony Romo. I don't know why.
No, I would be gushing.
Yeah, I'd be way more into that.
Yeah.
Very sly, Ryan. You just got me to cross a name off of the list. There's only 500 left.
But Forrest, what will your role be in designing this house?
Probably nothing. I'm pretty busy these days, so
you're more important. You have bigger clients. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. I'm working on a house for the richest man in Alaska, like 5 years ago. Yeah. So that's fun. He's a nice guy. He's a good client.
Wait, he was the richest 5 years ago, or you designed this house 5 years ago?
No, 5 years ago, I think he was the richest man in Alaska. I don't know who it is now. I guess it's possible it's him.
Wow.
But
I'm imagining some Russian oligarch who has since had all of his assets frozen, and little does Forrest know he's not going to get his check when the bill comes due.
No,
has no money.
He's about as far from that as you can get. I think he's shown up to every design meeting in the same pair of blue jeans and flannel shirt.
So, Forrest, what do you think of Leonard Hyde or Jonathan Rubini or Robert Gilliam or Gabriel Komkov?
One of those is right.
Cool.
I don't think there's any like particular secrecy that I have to stick to. It's Leonard Hyde. He's a cool guy, and he's building a nice house in Utah. Yeah. They're starting like a private ski resort from scratch, basically. And
Oh my God.
nothing is built there right now. They're working on like the clubhouse and the ski resort area. Yeah, that's crazy. But it's like on the backside of the mountains behind Salt Lake City. It's super cool.
I mean, it sounds like a $500 million project easy, right? A private ski resort. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, it's like a development being created by like a group of investors, and they're selling like all the property rights. And so the guy I'm working for is just building a house. He just bought a lot at this place that hasn't been built. But yeah, I mean, north of that, probably for the infrastructure of the place, seems crazy, but I don't know.
That's wild.
Why not?
So, Forrest, my question is, how involved are you with your clients? How do you interact with them on like a daily basis? Like, what's your involvement?
Yeah, I'm at the point in my career right now where I'm basically the point person for the project. So I'm the project manager. The principals above me, I involve them like once a week, probably. And I am setting up all the meetings. I'm coordinating the work of the people who are like actually drafting and drawing the project. I'm identifying, design problems and potential solutions, and going to the principals, and we all sit down and say, okay, well, these bathrooms and bedrooms aren't really quite working out well. What if we move this bathroom over here and flip the toilet around? And they're like, oh, okay, that's good. And then they'll draw a version that's a little different and give it to me, and I'll give it to someone else. And then I set up the call with the client, and then usually lead the bulk of the presentation. A lot of times the principal will tee it off and talk about any big ideas, but then I'll run through a bunch of the nuts and bolts stuff that we need feedback on. But usually we talk to our clients every couple of weeks, maybe once a month at the lowest end, and every week or every other week at the high end.
That's really impressive. Jumping off of that, what design or personal work that you've been involved in are you most proud of?
I think the answer is almost always going to be the last one. I feel like everything's stepped up so consistently. I feel like one of the best things about this firm and this job I got is it's just the right size to constantly be getting a little more responsibility and a little more experience in like every aspect of the job. It's small enough that you get to see how everything is done. And so I feel like because of that, I've been able to learn and grow a lot quicker than some people at larger firms and big cities. And so I feel like every project I've worked on has been like a new bold step in like the amount that I've been able to influence and touch it. So like whatever I did last is the thing that I have the most ownership over, and probably did the best because I learned a lot on the one before. I screwed up 30% of the first one and then 25% of the second one. And now it's down to like 10%. So maybe the next one is the right answer.
I'm curious, Forrest, if you can tell us, you hinted that your best project, you still had 10% wrong. Like, what was that 10%?
Oh, man. Well, it's just like what we're dealing with right now. We have a basement that is like a super cool furnished living room basement. And the clients first told us 3 years ago that the basement didn't need to be fancy. It was where the help was staying and where the kids would play, I guess. And over time, they realized, well, they actually do want a really nice basement. But we had designed like the ductwork and the structure of the ceiling above the basement for like a pretty low ceiling, because it was just a more, modest space. And so now they're like, well, should we delete air conditioning downstairs so that we can get an extra 3 inches of height in that ceiling? And then they're like, well, no, we need air conditioning. But they're all just very disappointed about how low the ceilings are. So we had to redesign all the cabinets, and like the window is too big now. So we have to like detail like a little pocket to step up, so the window actually goes up past the ceiling. And we had to add like a little column in because the structural engineer missized a beam. So now instead of a 40-foot wide opening with like accordion doors that's totally clear so that they can access their climbing wall, now there's a little like 3-inch wide piece of steel in the middle of it, which was a real bummer for them. I think I could live with it, but yeah, it's just stuff like that it piles up.
Sorry, you mentioned they have a climbing wall within their house.
Oh yeah, I didn't start with that.
Wow. Nope. Really buried the lead there.
Yeah, it's a requirement that if you have a sleeping space, you have to have a way to egress out to the exterior in case of a fire. And so we had a bedroom downstairs, and we had a bunk room in this game room. And so our solution to that egress requirement was to put a big like light well right next to the space. So there's this big window wall, and then 6 feet back from that, there's a big stone wall. And we always just showed it as like a pretty masonry stone wall. The light plays down it and it's cool shadows, whatever. But then the clients were like, well, can we turn that into a climbing wall? And we're like, well, it's only 10 feet tall, so I guess. But their kids really latched onto the idea. So now it's going to be like a 20-foot wide bouldering wall.
You've been gone from Raleigh for some time now. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your life? Do you have a close-knit group of friends? Is it hard to make friends over there? What have you been doing for the past few years?
It's a good question. First of all, I loved Raleigh, and I miss it. And I wish my parents still lived there so I would have an excuse to visit. But most of my college friends also moved away. There's a couple of, high school friends there, but the critical mass of like family and friends has just dispersed enough that I don't have that much of a reason to go back. But I've got so much like love from college, from the 5 years at NC State, that I wish I could go more often. But you didn't ask about Raleigh. You asked about Jackson. Jackson's beautiful. I'm probably the fattest person here, and I'm not that fat, but I'm getting there, So what do? I hang out with my girlfriend. We live together. We've been dating for 4 years. I actually got my engagement ring. Came in yesterday, and I picked it up. So I'm going to propose to her soon, like the next month or so. No, she doesn't know.
What if she listens to the Buffalo Boys?
I was about to say, should we like not publish this until,
Oh man.
Holy shit.
I hadn't thought about that. She loves you guys.
Todd, she's the one who's writing in Arabic on our comment section. Oh my God.
I don't listen to you guys, but she follows you every week. So honestly, I know I buried the lead a little bit, but to go back to your real question, most of my friends are her friends. I had some friends when I first moved here that were like work friends mostly, but they moved away. And, it's like the classic guys in their early middle age sort of, situation. I don't go out and like introduce myself to people very often, but it's okay because my girlfriend's a bartender. So she has infinite friends, and some of them are actually cool. And we hang out with those ones. And it's nice. And we have 2 dogs and a yard. We live this idyllic life. I live on a bike path. So when I walk my dogs like less than a mile, I see the Grand Tetons on the left and this beautiful, rolling hillscape on the right. And, there's moose in our yard sometimes, and I have to beat them off with sticks. And our landlady, who lives in the same house behind us, has like chickens that run around. So like, it's a pretty, strong vibe here. If it was socially acceptable, we would probably drive 2 hours to Idaho Falls and go to the Hampton Inn Ballroom and, get a Vegas preacher and just get it over with. But
There you go.
I don't know. My guess is it'll be pretty small, like a handful of friends on each side and family, and that's it.
So, Forrest, do you have any book or podcast recommendations for the league or our loyal listeners?
Ooh, what did I just read? I should remember because I only read like one book a year. Oh, I really enjoyed the Broken Earth trilogy, I think by N.K. Jemisin. It's like kind of a sci-fi series. The first book's really good at the very least, if you're into sci-fi. I really loved it because it was a totally new like system, how like a fantasy or a sci-fi book kind of lives or dies by its rules and like whatever weird society it's based on. This was just like a totally unique like system of people and like crazy shit that doesn't actually exist that I hadn't seen before. And so it was pretty interesting. I don't listen to any podcasts except CBS Fantasy Football, which is weird because I don't like CBS. Like of all the like 3-letter media companies, they're totally the redheaded stepchildren. But I love the personalities. Like they just seem like down to earth guys that aren't too bro-y. They're not too nerdy. They're just like right down the middle. They mix it all in a relatable way. So that's me.
So, Forrest, do you have a favorite memory from WPFL history, like a particular moment or game or discussion or even real world activity with the league that you'd like to share with us?
I have such a poor memory. Reaching back beyond this season is tough. I do remember fondly, I think probably like 2 times ago when we broke the record for most messages sent in a day. And I think I was involved in that one. So that was fun. I think my favorite recent memory was when I came back to beat Nixon 2 weeks ago. Very unpredictably, I think the 49ers defense scored 20-something points and I was down 20-something points and it was absurd. And ESPN gave me a 1% chance, but didn't matter. I pulled it out. I take full credit. I did that. It's on me.
It wasn't the 49ers. It was you, for sure.
No, exactly.
Forrest, if I made a friendly wager with you for $5, would you bet that anyone else in the whole league for the rest of the season would score lower than you did this past week?
What did I get? 48? I think I saw some of your stats today or yesterday, and it looked like the all-time lows were hovering in the mid-30s. So I would say I feel like there's a pretty good chance that someone scores less than me. Maybe like a 20, 25% chance. How does that translate into odds?
So if I gave you 1 to 4 odds here that happens.
Yeah, I pay you $5 if nobody scores lower.
I pay you $20.
$20. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Let's do it. Right.
I'm excited for both of you. Yes. Love when money is exchanged.
All right, Forrest, my last question. Who is your prediction to win it all this year?
Well, maybe it's because I'm here right now today. I'm going to say Ryan. That guy kicked my ass. And anybody who can beat me has got a good shot at it all. I'll throw in the caveat that I haven't actually looked at anyone's team in like 2 weeks. So I put the blinders on. I'm hyper focused on what I'm doing. Like, just worry about what you're doing. That's what the coaches always say. So that's my strategy here. I'll look out for trades. I'll get a lay of the land like once a week, maybe, see if there's any players I feel like I can pick off from the more gullible league mates. Obviously not Todd, because you're impossible to trade with. But yeah, for the most part, I don't pay attention to what's going on around me.
Forrest, I do think that we had the largest trade in fantasy history. I think we had a 4-for-3 trade a couple seasons ago.
We had a really good, I think we had a 2-part trade. We decided we were going to trade in a series of weeks. And yeah, I think there were like 4 or 3 on each side. That was pretty impressive. I don't think either of us actually like did anything after that trade, but it was fun. Like just getting the pieces into place, figuring out what worked for both of us. It's not going to happen this year, though.
That trade didn't go down as the great train robbery of the WPFL.
The great wet fart of the WPFL.
All right, Forrest, and final question. Thank you again for being with us. We'd like to ask everyone this before they go. What is one sentence or phrase that you would like to leave with your fellow PFL owners?
Get fucked, everyone. The trophy's coming home this year.
It's coming home, Todd. We heard it here first. All right, Forrest. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Owner Orientation. This has been great, man. Good to hear from you.
Thanks for having me.